You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on Montreal's News Talk Leader, CJAD 800.
Tonight, it's our regular monthly feature, Dating Dilemmas. In studio with me, as he is every month, is Frank Kermit of franktalks.com. But also joining us on the line tonight is Marni Kinrys. She's the creator of the Wing Girl Method. Hi, Marni.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Thank you for being on the show.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Now, you have to tell me what is exactly a wing girl. So everybody's on the same page, and we'll move on from there.
Okay, so a wing girl, by my definition, is a woman who helps men understand other women so they can attract, date, approach, meet, seduce, keep, be with the women that they want. It's to help bridge the gap in communication between men and women because, as you know, we both speak very different languages, even though we both want exactly the same thing, and that's overall happiness and people to understand us.
Right. So that because generally when we think about a wing person, whether it's a wing guy or a wing girl, we think about you going along with, you know, whoever it is that they're trying to pick up or what have you, and kind of helping them, you know, on the spot, no?
Yeah, oh, exactly. Well, that's how my business started. So originally, 7 years ago, that's exactly what I did. I would go out with men, and I would help pick up women for them. And now, you know, I would start going out with these guys, and I would end up being on a bench with them for more than half of the evening, explaining women to them. So I realized that there was a definite need, and that they were not wasting their money with me, but that they weren't ready to go on, I call it an outing at the time. They weren't ready to go on an outing with me until they understood themselves a little better and until they were more confident. So I say that you can't turn anybody else on until you're turning yourself on. So what I help men do is really turn themselves on.
So that makes a lot of sense, that you got to get them to understand the basics before you can even get somebody for them, because it doesn't really matter how great you are as a wing person if the person you're trying to hook up with someone else doesn't get it. They don't get it.
Exactly, and I'm a good wing girl. I am one of the best wing girls. But the thing is that the girls ended up wanting to hang out with me. So I had to teach these guys to be wonderful as well. So that's what I do now, and I help men all over the world.
Right. And I should tell our listeners that you did win the title of World's Best Female Pickup Artist.
I did, in 2010. I did.
So you are the best in this business, aren't you?
Yes, I am, and I'm very proud of it. Thank you. It's taken a while to get there, but yes.
And how does a nice girl like you gets into this line of work? Tell us.
Well, I'm a nice Jewish girl from Toronto who happened to be at a Jewish singles mixer when I was 23, and nobody was talking to each other. Like, literally, boys and girls, like in 7th grade, were separated. On one side of the room was boys, one side of the room was girls, and so I literally started grabbing the guys and pulling them to go talk to the women. I would give them feedback on their body posture, on what they were saying to girls. I would break into the conversation for them. And then at the very end, I would tell them what they were doing wrong, what they could improve. And so when I went home that night, I was a little buzzed, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was talking to my best friend saying how much I hated my job. I was working in PR at the time, and how it would be interesting to be a wing girl professionally. And my roommate came downstairs. He's a guy, and he was an entrepreneur, like really businessy, and he's like, there's no way that guys are going to pay for that. You're going to have to sleep with them if you want that service to work. So I was like, I don't think you're right. And I went in to my room. I put an ad up on Craigslist, and I had 75 guys respond to me by the next morning.
Wow.
So I started. And, I wasn't really sure what my business was in the very beginning. And I got phone calls from pimps and, like, strange people, and it was really weird and awkward, and my parents were not happy about
I'm sure not.
moving. Yeah, I moved to LA to become like an escort, basically, so they weren't happy about that. And then slowly over time, it morphed and changed, and I discovered the pickup artist industry. Which a lot of the men who are in the pickup artist industry who started it off are not, my cup of tea. They don't really teach anything of value.
I want to tell you one thing. I do agree with you. And sitting in front of me is a guy who, and I'll introduce you, Frank Kermit. Meet Marni.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hello.
Now, Frank also has been in this business a long time, but you feel, Frank, you feel the same way, that there are a lot of people in this business who are also very iffy and shady. Yeah.
Yeah, I studied under...
Sorry, go on. I'm sorry, Frank.
Yeah. I studied under some people that I very much regret having met in general. And,
really?
Yeah, and part of the reason that I set up my own avenue with this is so that at least the guys can learn something without having to succumb to associating with people who have been violent to women.
And interestingly, you and Marni do a little bit of the same stuff, because Frank also, he writes books for men to understand women, but, Marni comes from it from a female perspective, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well,
the two of you...
after this call, Frank, I would love to talk more with you about this. But yeah, no, I think a lot of the people who started off in this industry were, they were kind of angry and frustrated guys who weren't getting attention from women and who came up with some tactics and forms of manipulation in order to get what they wanted from women. And you know what? I understand that some people need training wheels at first. You may need lines. You may need routines because it doesn't come so naturally to people.
Right.
So being social is an actual skill, and some people don't naturally have that skill, so they have to earn it and learn it.
Right.
But a lot of these guys got a little bit drunk with power, and they kind of, it's like if guys watch porn too much, right? You start looking at women in a completely different way.
That's right.
And so a lot of these women have become objects, and they feel that in order to be perceived as someone with higher value, they have to knock women down a few levels to make them insecure, and that doesn't, it's not good for anybody. These men actually ruin these women for other men or potentially for themselves later on down the road when they do want something of substance. But the industry is completely changing now, and there are fantastic people who are really getting into the community and teaching the importance of being authentic and genuine, and really learning how to be a man rather than a player, where it's
a manipulator.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And maybe
even some of the people who started off in the industry are going in that direction.
Like Frank.
Not 23 anymore.
That's
exactly.
right.
Like you learn. You learn.
It's so interesting because right, when you look, Frank, when you look at your stuff and you see how you started, which might have been as a frustrated, individual who couldn't, was trying to figure out how to get the girl, you ended up writing books on emotional needs of men and women, you could see the maturity over time. But you're right, you're no longer 23. You're 33 or 43, and suddenly you learn that other things matter, and you really learn how to do it. So it's fascinating. It's such a fascinating. When you think about it, there are so many people who do have difficulty at this level and who are either socially awkward or just don't seem to have that skill. Not everybody has great social skills.
Yeah, and I can say even for myself, I was horrible with women. I'm married and I have a husband, but for my entire life, I had never really been great with women. So for me, it was also a different way of exploring that area of building friendships with women and trusting women. So I also had my own small frustrations towards women. And I always was the friend to female. So I would always explain what was going on to my male friends and what women were doing, because in the past I used to think of women in the same terms that a lot of men did, manipulative, petty, I don't know which words I can say on the radio right now, but other words. I don't see women that way. I don't see women that way anymore. Okay. But that's the background that I came from when I was 23. So, as everybody grows, they have their eyes open a little bit more, hopefully.
Well, it's quite fascinating. We're going to take a short break. Marni, can you hang out with us for a little bit longer?
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Marni Kinrys.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by the book, I'm a Man, That's My Job, The Philosophy of a Seducer. Your inner game is as unique and personal as your signature or your fingerprints. This book provides you with the means to create your own seduction persona. By this, learn what it means to be a man and attract the women you want. Learn about how men and women think differently and how to take the lead in a relationship. This book is for you at franktalks.com.